Hello everyone, Justin Vacula here with the video number 11 of my Stoic Philosophy video series. Today's topic will be Stoicism and New Year's resolutions. You can find me online at justinvacula.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This video is coming out on January 2nd of 2017, as many people are considering how they're going to improve their lives in the new year, what habits they're going to change, how they're going to change their schedule, how they're going to make their life better in general. Well, Stoicism acts as a practical philosophy which helps to improve our lives. So we can look to Stoicism, look back to Epictetus' Discourses to think about how we're going to change things in the new year, how we're going to break habits, how we're going to live a better life. So let's get to it. One of the most relevant chapters in the Discourses on habits and New Year's resolutions, although Epictetus doesn't talk about New Year's resolutions, is in Book 2, Chapter 18 of his Discourses, How Must We Struggle Against Impressions? He says here, if you want to do something, make it a habit, and gives the example of if you want to read, well, read in succession. If you want to go on a long walk, continue walking. That if you're not to walk, if you're not going to read, then you're going to get rusty. Your legs are going to feel enfeebled. He writes here, if you want to be a reader, read. If a writer, write. But if you fail to read for 30 days in succession and turn to something else, you will see the consequence. So also, if you lie down for 10 days, get up and attempt to take a fairly long walk, you will see how enfeebled your legs are. In general, then, if you want to do something, make it a habit. So here the advice is that we're going to plan to do something and stick to it, not just make a resolution, I'm going to exercise, and just randomly do it. At least in the counseling field and what I've studied, we talk about goals and goal setting. We want to make our goals reasonable, observable, measurable, and attainable. Think about what we want to do, not just to be haphazard about it, and that's a topic in much of the discourses, not to just do things at random, and to actually think ahead, to be prudent, to be careful in what we want to do, and set these goals for ourselves. We want to lose weight. Well, how are we going to do that? What kind of schedule are we going to have? How are we going to exercise? With whom are we going to exercise? When are we going to do it? That's just one thing we can ask questions about, put a plan in place and make something a habit, not just to say that we're going to do something, but to actually go out and do it. To take action is one thing that comes up a lot in the discourses. He continues here, in general then, if you want to do something, make it a habit, and if you want not to do something, abstain from doing it, and acquire the habit of doing something else in its place. This is also the case when it comes to things of the mind. Whenever you are angry, be assured that it is not only a present evil, but that you have strengthened the habit and added fuel to the fire. Here he's talking about replacing one habit with another. For instance, people want to quit smoking. Well, perhaps one thing that's associated with that is that people like having something in their mouth. Some people who try to quit start chewing gum, chewing sunflower seeds, something like that. They're putting one thing in the place of another thing. That's, of course, not as harmful as the original one, or not something bad, something that we want to get rid of these bad desires. This comes up a lot in Stoic text. We want to live a good life. We want to surround ourselves with proper people. We want to have a well-rounded life, and we want to have balance too. So not to be so hardcore with our goals that we're going to fail, that we're going to set the bar so high that we're not going to reach it, and then we're going to be upset that we missed it. We want to be reasonable, again, in our goals. He says here, sickness grows in the mind, that patterns that we can set for ourselves can be originated in how we think about them, our impressions, as is talked about in this chapter. He writes, for habits and faculties must necessarily be affected by the corresponding actions, and become implanted if they were not present previously, or be intensified and strengthened if they were. This is, of course, how philosophers say that sickness grows in the mind. Once you desire money, for example, if reason is applied to bring you to an awareness of the evil, the desire is curbed where the governing faculty of the mind regains its authority, whereas if you apply no remedy, it no longer returns to its former state. But when it is excited again by corresponding impression, it is inflamed by desire more quickly than before. So we're going to be aware of what's happening, how we think about certain things. We want to think about what is going on when we have this desire. Is this a good desire to have? Not simply to just go with it, We want to reflect on our emotions. We want to reflect on our thoughts, not just to simply say, oh, well, we're going to put this aside. We're going to just ignore what's going on. We're going to confront that. This is something in Stoic philosophy that comes up a lot in the discourse. Is a common misconception of Stoic philosophy is that we're just going to deal with it, but we're not going to think about it. We're going to just suppress emotions. We're not going to deal with it. But it's not the case. It's not what Epictetus is suggesting here. He talks about relapsing. He writes that certain traces and wheels are left behind. So once we break a habit, we're not fully cured of this. As he writes, that a person who's cured of a sickness, well, they might not be fully cured. If a person has been beaten, they still have scars. So we're going to recognize that we can fall back into poor habits, to be aware to not do that. He writes, certain traces and wheels are left behind in it, which, unless the person concerned expunges them utterly, the next time he is flogged in the same place, not wheels but wounds are created. If then you do not wish to be ill-tempered, do not feed the habit. Give it nothing to promote its growth. Keep quiet to begin with, and count the days on which you have not been angry. He continues here, talking about improving being a slow process. I used to be very angry each day, now every other day, then every third and fourth day. And if you avoid it as many as 30 days, offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving to God, for habit is first weakened and then entirely destroyed. I was not distressed today, nor the next day, nor for 3 or 4 months after, but took due care when things happened that might have caused me distress. Be assured that you are in a fine way. So this is quite a process. It's not going to be easy to just put something aside. We're going to take steps to get rid of our bad habits. And we're going to have gratitude and thank ourselves, give this thanksgiving, thank God. He talks about as this topic of divine governance comes up in the text. But for secular readers, those who don't believe in God, well, we can simply appreciate. We can have gratitude, whether it be for others, ourselves, a God, so be it. This text can be applied to all. He says that he pats himself on the head when he has achieved some sort of victory after taking due care. He says, I pat myself on the head and say, well done, Epictetus. So a simple thing you could do to perhaps reward yourself, to feel good that you've overcome a bad desire, a poor habit. He also talks about striving for good. You must wish to satisfy your true self. You must wish to appear beautiful in the sight of God. You must desire to become pure in the presence of your pure self. So here we're talking about what is it that we should do? What is it that we should strive for? Is desire for money, for fatty foods, for sexual desire, as he talks about. These things could be taken in extremes and really ruin us. He writes about desires never being fulfilled, that people want more and more and more. So by thinking about our desires, evaluating what is it that we need to live this good life, which desires should we have? This is how we can go forward and think about what we want to change with ourselves. And he ends the chapter here talking about procrastination and making excuses for poor behavior. As a person might say, oh, well, I didn't do it this time, but I'll do it the next day. And, well, that next day really never comes. That people keep failing because maybe they don't have a clear goal, maybe they don't have a clear plan, they haven't really thought about what it is that they need to change and how they're going to do that. He writes here, if you are once defeated and say you will get the victory another time, and then the same thing over again, you can be sure that you will at last be reduced to so weak and wretched a condition that you will not so much as know when you are going wrong, but you will even begin to make excuses for your behavior, and thus confirm the saying of Hesiod, with constant ills, the dilatory must strive. So don't procrastinate, don't continue these bad actions. We're going to get worse in our state if we want to make these excuses, if we put it off, if we keep failing again and again. How are we to improve? We're to reflect, we're to take due care, we're to take little steps at a time, be clear, reasonable with our goals, be honest with ourselves, and evaluate our desires, evaluate what we want to change and how we're going to do it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Again, find me online at justinvacula.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can donate to support my work at justinvacula.com. Please leave your comments below, and stay tuned for more content. Thank you.